Welcome to this segment of California Haunts Radio. It's the week after Easter, and I'm recovering from the chocolate Easter bunnies. I don't know about you guys, but anyway, to get on with this, my name is Charlotte, and I'm your host, and I am with the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team. We are at www.californiahaunts.org. Check us out. We're a great group, and we have some fun stuff on our website. Tonight's guest is Gian Temperilli, and Gian Temperilli is a co-author of a book which he wrote with psychic or intuitive Peter James. So I'm going to go ahead and get Gian on here, and we can talk to him directly. Hi, Gian, are you there?
Yeah, hi, Charlotte.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how you doing today?
Terrific. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, actually, to tell you how, I've always just been a big fan of the paranormal. I mean, my wife and I, 19 years ago, we just had our, actually 14-year wedding anniversary yesterday. And back when we were first dating, I mean, among the first few weeks, we started watching the X-Files, of course, and getting into the conspiracy theories and the paranormal, and of course, watching a show called Sightings back then in the mid-'90s, and that's where we saw the weekly psychic correspondent every week, and that was Peter James, and that's who I co-authored Heaven Can You Hear Me with. And, that's just been a big turning point in my life, to go from being a fan of the paranormal and watching all the programming, reading the books, and then to actually work alongside a legend like that. It's been, I'm incredibly humbled by it, basically. So never thought I'd be doing this 4 years ago.
I used to watch those shows, too. And, and I used to see Peter James on all the time. How does one become a friend and become involved with a legend like that?
Well, we wanted to do something different for our 10-year wedding anniversary, and back in 2007, my wife just brought up we live here in Long Beach, California, home of the Queen Mary, and it's part of the the city seal here. And just something, we've always had a fascination, a love for the ship, and, of course, seeing Peter on the ship communicating audibly with Jackie, that famous footage from April of 1991, and really demonstrates how he was a pioneer in the field, in the early days of the paranormal programming and before any type of celebrity status and things. And we've always just had a fascination for the ship, and my wife had the idea of just saying, hey, why don't we take a tour of the ship? We've never done it before. See if we could go to the pool area with the tour group and all the different parts of the ship that were pretty haunted as well. So she goes online. We hadn't heard anything about Peter James for years other than, just every once in a while a replay of sightings, and which unfortunately you don't see too much anymore, and unexplained mysteries. He was on quite a bit with the Ghost Rider investigation, Sally's House, and so she just thought, well, we'll see what's on the ship these days and let's take a look. And sure enough, she puts in the Queen Mary, and Peter came back to give the tours. He popped up on the screen. We got excited right away, and we thought that's what we're going to do for our anniversary, is go take a paranormal tour of the ship with Peter James. So that's what we did. We signed up, went there, and when you know celebrities, you tend to have a perspective of who they are, and you just kind of thought, well, he's going to come out for a few minutes, address everybody, and then here's my assistant, he'll take you through the rest of the ship. And it was quite the opposite of that. Peter was a part of every aspect of the tour. He made sure everybody's questions were answered regarding the afterlife. This started at about 9 o'clock at night, ended about 1:30 in the morning, going through every aspect of the ship. His whole life he's had chronic bronchitis and asthma, and it was real evident towards the end of the tour, but that wasn't something that was going to keep him from, hosting the tour. So he just went through, muscled through it, and just really was a part of every aspect of the tour. And when we got back, I just sent him an email, like a nut fan, basically thanking him for the tour, that we're longtime fans and just couldn't have expressed it enough on his tour, and it was the greatest thing we'd ever done. And in doing so, he wrote back in multi-paragraph responses. He gave his phone number. And he also did so on the tour, and he said if anybody has any questions about the afterlife or really need, some issues resolved or have haunting activity somewhere in your life, give him a call anytime, So he sent me all this information about his personal life, email address, phone number, all this contact, and just said, I'm here anytime if you ever need anything or anybody needs anything. And I wrote him back, thank you for that. And I actually had a project idea for a while I really thought he could benefit from that, was regarding the paranormal, and just, let him know, hey, here's an idea, just something maybe you can utilize or something, and passed it on. And he wrote back in several multi-paragraph responses of, John, I really love that idea. Can you expand on it and send me something more on it? So I sent him about 7 or 8 pages on what it would entail and different things for the programming and plot line and different things. And he really liked the way I wrote. And then he asked me, about my writing background. I said, well, I went to the University of Laverne and graduated in broadcasting. Along with that was extensive syntax and grammar and journalism and writing. And I'd taken some classes on screenwriting, wrote screenplays. And then he'd at that point asked me if I'd co-author his book. And I was shocked by that. And, of course, said yes. And then within a few minutes of that, he started sending me file after file of his life's work, of his development of his psychic ability, a book that he'd been working on for years, but just he wanted it put in a book format, find an author that could really put it together for him in the right way, in chapter order and all the various context. And, right away I just started reading everything before I even got back to him. I just was glued to the screen and reading what he wrote. So, of course I agreed. We got together about how he wanted the book to go. And, he really detailed out how he wanted the chapter order, the cover to look, just every aspect of it. And we had a meeting about that. And, of course, just prior to that, he invited me for the second tour, and we brought our daughter. He let her call out to Jackie, and it was a great thing for her, too. And, unfortunately, that was his final tour. We met with him a week after that at his apartment and just went over every aspect of the book, and his breathing was quite labored. And, really secured everything about how he really wanted this to be his legacy, everything about his life's work. The final concluding chapter, connecting with the spirit realm, goes over how you could deal with negative activity, or what he would do as an approach starting from the outside in on his investigations and his technique, and really get you to learn how to coexist or, rid your home of negative haunting activity, and really just to be communication being the key factor. And that's something that was different, or really, just sort of a foundation of what the paranormal should be in investigating, and that is communication. He communicated with ghosts. They were his friends, as he said, and growing up, those were his friends. And so he wanted everybody else, like me, a lay person, to really understand that these aren't 90% of what's out there is not negative or combative, or how you deal with them should be in the similar approach. So he really had that early style of just communication, nothing combative or, derogatory. And so he really laid that foundation at the early time. Unfortunately, that's not always what you see anymore, or people try to pick up as an approach. But I really like to see that come back, or people realize that about Peter, is that he was just a warm, generous person. And so, he just walked me through how he wanted the actual book to go, and unfortunately he went in the hospital a week later and never came out. So it left me the responsibility of getting his words out to his fans. I actually convinced him that night if there was any way possible for me not to put this in a book format, but when he sent me what he did, he wrote like he spoke, and one sentence would be like a paragraph long, where he would paint a picture, and it was just the way Peter spoke, or the transition words he used. I didn't want to lose any of that, so I convinced him to let me just correct what he wrote and really put it together in a proper way, so that it just gave the fans his inner voice while they read, and I'm glad I was able to do that. So in a nutshell, that was essentially how I met Peter, and unfortunately it was for a very short time, but really impacted and changed the lives of my family and a lot of his fans. I get continual emails and correspondences. And
I was going to ask you about the Queen Mary. I've been on there myself, and I had come in contact with, I believe, the little girl Jackie is her name, and I had come in contact with her. The reason why I do this is I was walking on the land side, near a dining area on the land side, and I felt something go through me, and I felt really dizzy and stuff. And I had been in contact later on in my life. I had been in contact with Dennis Hawk, and I had talked to him about it, and he thought that it was Jackie, that went through me. And so I'm really intrigued by the whole Jackie thing. But what about the ghosts on there? How many ghosts did Peter encounter?
Now, Peter claims in his book as well that he believes it to be the most active paranormal haunted location in the world. He does mention in the book that he believes today the area over the World Trade Center he believes would be more active probably than the Queen Mary, but he felt that there were over 600 resident active ghosts, and in the 5 years that he had carte blanche of the ship, he actually stayed in the Sir Winston Churchill suite and conducted his tours and just ongoing paranormal investigations and really got to know all of them. So he would see them, he could sensationally feel them, get messages from them, and there are some of the more famed ones of Jackie in the pool area, John Petter, down by door 13, and just various other ones, captains and other workers, and John Henry in the boiler room, and there's just so much activity aboard the ship. And I've gone along just by default of co-authoring Peter's book. I get invited on paranormal investigations quite a bit and events, and I've seen, and as you described too, have the touches and hear the audible replies, captured EVPs, and actually several of them that actually refer to Jackie by name. There are a lot of people aboard the ship that it actually angers Peter's family and his friends that say that he was a trained ventriloquist and all these other things, and he's Jackie's voice while he's, doing some parlor act, and that's really not the case. I've been there since Peter's passed away. I've heard Jackie's voice, and it's remained unchanged for the 20 years that I've heard his recordings and other people's captures and other EVPs that refer to Jackie by name when I've been in places where you could hear a pin drop. And so that's just something that sadly other people in the field try to do is dispute Peter's claims and his evidential capturings.
Absolutely. I get that out in the field a lot with my own team. What was Peter James the Man like? I mean, we saw him on TV. We saw him, on the shows, and we know about him doing psychic tours. But what was he really like? Was he real passionate about what he did, or what?
Well, extremely passionate. And on our final meeting too, when he was explaining to me that he liked ghosts were his friends, and he really wanted to dispel that fear and just take the sting out of the fear that we all have about the afterlife and what Hollywood portrays. And he said there are negative entity or negative activity in some cases. He feels that it's somebody that's territorial and you're invading their space. They're confused by that transition into afterlife. So a lot of what could be construed as negative, there are certainly negative and very, very real paranormal activity outwardly, but he felt that was 2% of what he ever experienced in paranormal investigations, and really worked to get families to coexist with the entities and activity rather than simply just to clear. So he would communicate with the entities, let them know where they are, how to move on or coexist with the families. And that was long after the cameras were turned off as well. And the owners of the Sally's house, they would let you know that too as well, the Pickmans, that Peter stayed long after at his own personal expense to really help them. And that's what Peter was all about. That was him as a person. He also mentioned as well about his book is if he just sold one copy that made a child sleep better at night, it was all worth it to him. So it was just something that he felt should be his legacy. It was all about who he was his career, very passionate about it. And I said to him, so you're sort of like the crocodile hunter that knows something. You've grown up with this thing that most people just don't know anything about, holding this warded, hissing beast and just saying, isn't she gorgeous, because they're your friends. You know them. You know how they react. And he said, exactly, John. So that's who Peter was very passionate about his field, and it just carried through in his persona.
Do you think that in most cases that ghosts and living can cohabitate, can live together?
I don't have all the answers. That's something Peter would say in his book as well, is that he never claimed to have all the answers. He was very reluctant to give information because he didn't always know where it was coming from, or he got it sensately or vibrationally, as he called it. And so that was something that stood out about Peter as well, as with his abilities. He was never always just fully confident about the information that, for someone like me to outwardly view it, just go, wow, he really has an ability, but he never looked at it like that or felt 100% confident about all his information that he got. but just really his passion about helping people just really carried through, and I just feel it was the communication that he utilized to really connect with the spirit realm. He had a connection in doing that I don't know that everybody else today really has. I haven't seen anybody else quite like Peter interact, and you can go to the Facebook and see the videos that the family's allowed me to post, and we've had digitally enhanced, and so you can actually see Peter in action, and it's a very different approach, but you can see how they would be drawn to him and communicate with him and really listen to him, you know. So I don't have the answers on that about how that works, or if it's 100% something that would always work, or just takes the right person and the right connection with the activity.
Absolutely. I kind of seen it out, you know, when I've been out with our team psychics as well. You say you've done some paranormal investigations. Where have you gone with Peter? Obviously the Queen Mary, but have there been any other places?
Well, the Queen Mary quite a bit, Linda Vista Hospital in East L.A., some cemeteries locally here in Southern California, recently Virginia City, and an overnight investigation on Alcatraz with the Constantinos. And I actually caught my first ghost photo there that nobody could really explain either. So it's just something, again, I didn't think I'd be doing 4 years ago, but my family, we just really love to be a part of that. Now, we'd never take our daughter to places like that, but we do take her to the Queen Mary because it was a place that Peter felt comfortable that she could go. There have been some things since that there's some theories on that there have been some dark presences over about the last year and a half that a lot of people are picking up on various places that didn't always seem that way before. So it may be something that we always do the precaution of leaving everybody in the parking lot, but if there's people that don't do that and say they're at a correctional facility 1 week and then, you know, Wolf Manor another week, and then they go to the Queen Mary to investigate, they may be leaving something behind, and it may be like a cross-contamination in a way. I don't know, but it's in areas we've always felt comfortable before, don't seem to always seem that way now, so.
Well, that is entirely possible because there are people that don't realize that they have hitchhikers with them. When they do go to other places, it's like you say. 1 week you're at a prison or whatever, and the next week you're going to be on the Queen Mary. It could make a huge difference. How long did it take you? Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say Debbie Constantino let me know that she had picked up an EVP at a location and just felt like something was in the car with her on the way back, and so she started just a session in her car while she was heading towards her home and picked up the exact same EVP voice in the back seat of her car. And she said she jumped out on the freeway, opened every door in the hatch, and started with every expletive you could think of telling, whoever to get out at like 3 a.m. on empty roads. So it's very possible that I firmly believe that, yeah, they can certainly hitch a ride with you.
In working with Peter, how long did it take you to complete the book?
I wanted to be very careful about it, and especially because this was somebody that passed away, and I couldn't ask more questions on what direction or what to interject or anything like that. And so I put footnotes in there that are any part of something that Peter told me about certain parts of it. I had those put in there, and that's another thing I'm grateful for, is that the publishing house, World Audience, agreed contractually that if they were in hold of this book, that they would not edit any of the content. So that was very important for me as well. So just to have that freedom of being able to just correct what Peter did, give it the fluidity of how his speech would be. There's a lot of commas, a lot of semicolons, and things that may run off in parts on a sentence, but that's how Peter spoke and painted the picture. So that took a lot of what would take years, made it a lot easier just to correct, give it that flow, make it very much the way Peter would speak as he put it in his writing. So it really took me about a year because I also wanted to be very careful at the same time and really generate those images from his family, get the higher resolution. I actually went to dub houses and got some of the footage from them that they have archived of Peter's from his original programming and had stills done of those and made sure that every little facet that could possibly be in addition to the book, absolutely secure and give every flow possible.
Wonderful, wonderful. Being a journalist myself, I know how much work goes into editing stuff like that, and it is what people don't realize is it is a lot of work because you have to make it flow and you have to make sure everything's correct before it goes over to the publisher for the final approval and the proofreaders and everything. Because not only do you proofread the thing, there's somebody, once you fire it off over to the publishing company, there's somebody else that's proofreading over your shoulder and fact checking. So you got to make sure, you've dotted all your I's and crossed your T's and all that.
Right.
Like you say, Peter was obviously passionate about what he did, and I remember seeing the mustache. That was the big thing with the mustache. You could always tell it was him on those TV shows.
Right.
And like Sightings, it's not on anymore. Like you say, and that was a great show. People don't give Sightings enough credit. What do you remember most about being with him on these investigations?
See, I've only been on those the two final tours of Peter's, and I really wish I'd had more time to really be with Peter and just watch him in action, because, it was just captivating to watch Peter communicate. And then on the first time, not the second time, but the first time, we actually did hear Jackie respond, my wife and I, very clearly. Not everybody in the group heard it. And then, so you weren't just guaranteed Jackie was going to communicate or talk to Peter. And that was something unique as well. He would take you through, but say, hey, we try to listen. These are the parts I'm going to say. I think this is where she's going to come through, but there's no guarantee, So that was interesting to watch about Peter. But, yeah, to go back and see the footage again, to see him and hear his voice again, it's something that, sometimes just, brings me to tears, but it just, it gives me a chill every time I just go back and watch his early investigations. But I really wish I got to be on more of them with him.
So my question then is, since Peter's been gone, have you been doing investigations on your own?
On my own, not really, because you're not really allowed anywhere, but there's a university around here in Long Beach that we're going to be going back to, that we actually picked up some interesting things, but it's in a field, so it's not something that, you need to get out of this field. But it's a place that we go, but we always like to, have paranormal groups with us and meet up, and they really pick some things up, some like flute music, and a lot of the students, we've got stories from them, so I like to do a little bit more of the investigative on that. But something that, not to disrupt the location and bring everybody and their mother in, type of thing. But, really respect the locations. But, I like to do them more organized. Like Linda Vista, you pay the $40, you go, and you have till 4 in the morning to investigate. Those are the type of things I really like to do, be a part of a group. And then if you get any evidence, it's all corroborated by what they pick up on recorders and video as well.
Here's a question. I haven't had a chance to read the book yet, but was Peter an empath, or what type of psychic was he?
Yeah, he goes through that in his various chapters on how things actually got relayed to him. So there were times it would be empathic. He would feel the sadness, or he would feel the crushing blow that might have happened to somebody. And that was something you saw that was unique as well. This was before the Internet in the mid-'90s, and they would fly him out to a state, drive an hour and a half by town car, take him to a location with no prior knowledge on where he was, and then the sighting archivist would be in the dusty Dewey Decimal systems of the county courthouse and come up and verify the names that Peter was getting and circumstances of death, and he could feel those various things and would relay the information or pick up the names, and he said that this wasn't always audible even. This was something that he describes as vibrational. So it was just a compelling, almost like an itch to say this name, whatever the name would be, like Howard, or this person's a doctor, and he would just generate the type of information, and that's why he was always uncomfortable with that element of it. Of course, there was always, he would see the apparitions, or he would be talked to directly, or hear the voices or the names coming to him. But that was another aspect, was the empathic part, or what he would get is just a feeling that this is the name, this is the circumstance of death, and here's the message they really want to convey, and things of that type.
Yeah, were you a skeptic when you first met him, or were you already a believer?
We were, like my wife and I, sort of the same, where it was just like you really had to show me. I really had to see this. Or like when it happened once, it's like, okay, then now do it again. And then when it would happen again, there's a lot more than the coincidence that would happen. So I'd say in about the first year of meeting Peter, and, okay, now I really see in the person. This isn't just somebody on TV, but there's always that sense of he did turn you into a believer. I mean, turn you from a believer to a knower, I'd say. And I feel Peter's really the only person that's done that. And I'd never had any experiences up until, the point of going on investigations. We had some personal experiences in our former home. Even listening now, there's Jerry and Carmela that just had they're having their wedding anniversary today, and that's something else that's unique, is that I get to meet all Peter's fans and people that really have come together in the field and really supportive. They come to the shows, they listen, and are a part of everything. And they've had paranormal activity ongoing in their home as well, and it's something that you really wish somebody like Peter was around to help them with it and to understand it, or to, in their case, definitely clear it. There's been some very negative things that have happened with them, but it's just we need somebody else like Peter again, essentially.
Absolutely, because I remember, I wanted to ask you about this too. I remember the first time I went out with one of our team psychics, I wasn't quite used to it, and so it kind of scared me in a way, to watch her work. But, later, as I got used to it and got more and more used to it, it was neat. It was a neat thing to cross-verify stuff. Did you have that kind of feeling at first with Peter, or was it just something, because obviously you'd seen him on TV anyway, it might not have bothered you?
Right. Well, it was all the cases, when they would fly him out somewhere and they could corroborate everything Peter was coming up with. This wasn't just the Queen Mary. This wasn't just the Winchester House, or known locations and people that may have died in these places. Certainly Peter did Alcatraz and came up with a lot of things there, and that's the thing where a lot of people would go, oh, well, then everybody knows the history on how the guards were shot by inmates during a certain period, and he would be in private residences. That's what set him apart, and this was every week, and he was dead on every time. So it was something that turned you from being a believer into knower to watch him in all these locations and actually be accurate every time. That set him apart for us, just to know that there's really something to him, and then to actually see him in action, go back to the ship, pick up our own EVPs, and just hear that voice of Jackie and know it's definitely her. I mean, we have a daughter, and we could pick her voice out of a crowd, and Jackie's very much that way. And sometimes we're there, we don't hear the beginning of a sentence or the end of a sentence. You just hear her kind of trailing in and out in the middle or singing, and that's what she did for Peter. And so, it's one of those things that there's been so much evidence and so much that I've personally witnessed, or, as with Jerry and Carmela, their experiences were very similar to what we had too, and they were very real. And so, it carries you over to that point of where you could just have the slightest bit of skepticism to really pull it across to where, there's no doubt.
Absolutely, absolutely. Getting back to Jackie, I know I talked with Dennis Hawk and Robin Street, and they had told me that she's more apt to hang around women than she is to hang around men. Did you find that through your travels with Peter? Did he say anything like that Jackie would be more attached to women?
Well, actually, what Peter said about Jackie and what Peter's former assistant said, he worked with Peter for 15 years, and he's heard her and actually seen her a couple times, and he was a very big skeptic, Peter's assistant, till he started working for Peter. He said when he started 15 years ago with Peter that he thought, he was looking for a personal assistant position. He talked to Peter, and he goes, oh, great, this is a psychic. He thought he was going to be a personal assistant for a celebrity or something of that type. And his first investigation a week later he went on was the Ghostwriter house, and everything that was happening in there turned him instantly into beyond a believer.